Good morning. This is Tracy. Hails fast. Right on Four Corners on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico. Today, I'm talking to Lou Christen about his memoir, Summer on the White Grass. Good morning, Lou.
Good morning, Tracy.
So you're talking to me from beautiful Corrales, New Mexico.
That's correct.
Corrales
is a small, very quiet, very secure, very, very old enclave just north of the city. It's considered the horse capital of New Mexico. Most of the owners ride Arabians and are work horses. It's a combination of the tractor life, the farm life, the ranch life, and the elegant life.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good combination.
Yeah, it's really kind of wonderful. It's like a little gem.
That sounds like it.
Like Charlie Russell grew up in the bricklake making business and wanted to be a cowboy. Well, you know what happened to Charlie Russell, I think. I hope your listeners do. That he's one of my favorite Western artists.
Mine too, yes. So St. Louis opened its gates for you to come all the way out to Yellowstone.
Well, it's even worse than that.
Oh, okay.
The history of my family is a little bit more complicated.
Uh-huh.
My great-great-grandfather came from Germany to settle in a little town west of St. Louis called Augusta, Missouri, where a German writer named Duden had decried Augusta as looking like the Rhine Valley. Well, my grandfather, August Christian Mueller, partnered with a rascal named John Sutter and lent him the family gold, and he and Sutter went up and down the Santa Fe Trail for years. He left home, left the widow, left the farm, about 1,000 acres in the valley called Freudenthal, which translates as a beautiful valley. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, my grandfather was killed in a bar fight on the Mexican border. So I have a bit of rascal and traveler in me.
You do?
I'm afraid.
And writer.
Well, I don't know if I have that yet, but I'm working on it.
So you came after a stint in the service, ended up in Yellowstone at the White...
Actually, the trip to the West was between my second and third year in college. It almost didn't end with me going back to college because I wasn't sure I was going to do it. But I just was completely unsettled after my second year in college, and just instead of bearing down on business school, I decided that one more chance to try an adventure. And so I decided to go somewhere, and it just happened that some friend of mine started expounding on the beauties of Jackson Hole. It sounded so wonderful, I decided to make that my destination, even though I'd never been there. I didn't know anybody who was there, and I didn't really know anybody else who had ever gone there. I left home with $40 in my pocket and about 6 candy bars and a small duffel bag, and I was going to hitchhike to Wyoming.
Wow.
I didn't think it was very far.
It's big out west.
It's really big.
I mean, the title of your book is Summer on the White Grass. So tell our listeners about how you ended up on white grass, what it is, and what you did there.
It just so happened that I met a wonderful woman who was driving a little black MGTD. I was hitchhiking out of Jackson Hole, heading north for Yellowstone, because I was told that there might be some work up there. And I told this wonderful lady, her name was Bess Sisson, and she ran a little bait and tackle shop in Jackson Hole up in a little town called Moose. That's about 20 miles north of Jackson in the summertime as a hobby. But secretly, I think she was a very wealthy rice plantation owner in Arkansas, but just did this for summer work. And I told her my goal of trying to find a cowboy life, or at least a job on a ranch. And she happened to know the owner of the Whitegrass and told him about me, and he hired me.
And there was your opportunity.
There it was. It just kind of fell in my lap. But the story of how I got there and ended up there is a story in itself. It's really funny. Well, I have to remember, you read it.
I have, you betcha.
So every major town and every major place or resort in Yellowstone in a couple of weeks before I finally got on the ranch.
And you'd been dishwashing, but you did not do that on the Whitegrass. You actually suddenly became a cowboy.
I never touched the dish except to eat off of it.
There you go.
No. Once I got to the Whitegrass, I was a working cow kid.
And had you had any experience riding or herding cattle or milking cattle before you started this?
Not really. It just happened that I had mother's family did have a farm, and my uncle, when I was about 5 years old, showed me how to milk a cow, but I'd never actually touched one myself. But
yeah.
and the worst part of the story was when I was a little boy. My father loved horses, and we would go to a riding stable near our town in Ferguson, Missouri. And my biggest and only experience, I think, on a horse was not a horse, but a pony he put me on, was that he ran away with me.
Oh, dear.
So I'm exactly an experienced horse person. When you need a job, you learn fast.
Yeah, you were on a horse that first day at the
Well, I was, Tracy, I think I was more off the horses than I was on them. I think the first day I got thrown 5 times.
Oh, my gosh.
Including one horse that went over backwards and broke the saddle.
Oh, my God.
Hard rack.
Well, you evidently picked it up pretty quickly and quickly became a real cowboy.
Well, I guess I did all the work. I never considered myself a real cowboy. I just considered myself a lucky kid who found a beautiful place to learn how to handle horses and to stay alive and have a great time.
You did have a great time.
It's the book is full of it.
It is.
I tried my best to recount the feelings I felt while working on that ranch. It was just a wonderful place to be.
You did capture them, and I felt like I was there. It was a beautiful place, and just the opportunities were great. I really like the fact that you really didn't have an immediate boss. I mean, he was rather remote, so you kind of were told what to do and just did it.
Well, that was a surprise to me. I kind of felt like I was getting into a world I really didn't know, but the kind people all around me just let me learn it myself.
Yes.
They didn't help me or hinder me or try to teach me how to do anything. They just gave me the opportunity.
And what were your daily activities on Whitegrass Ranch?
Mostly just general ranch work. We did everything. I started every morning with wrangling cows to milk and feeding chickens and pigs and saddling horses for dues and taking people on pack trips. And I just did everything. I built fence. I dug ditches. I cut firewood for the boiler. I did all the ranch work. And nobody. Once I figured out what needed to be done, nobody ever told me to do anything.
You just got up and did it.
Yeah, I basically worked from before dawn to about a little after sunset, and I slept like a baby.
I can imagine. You had group dinners with the other ranch hands?
Well, yeah, we had our own little kitchen, very small.
Uh-huh.
And there were probably about a dozen of us, and we met for breakfast, lunch, and supper every day. Did you like my little story about the porcupines?
I did.
That was so funny. That was the first night I was sleeping in my little tiny cabin.
Mm-hmm.
It was about 4 by 8, I think, or 6 by 8 in size, inner size. And all of a sudden, I'd almost gone to sleep, and it was totally dark. Didn't have a light on, and all of a sudden there was a scratching under the floor. And I got really nervous. I didn't know what it was. So I put on my clothes and went back to see the guy who was officially my boss, I guess, called Cookie. And Cookie said not to worry. There's a family of porcupines that live under my cabin. Just be careful when you go out the door at night.
Oh. So did you ever see the porcupines?
Never ever saw them.
But
I very seldom actually heard them. I guess they were kind of surprised because somebody new had come into their above their ceiling, their ceiling of their
Right.
little house below my cabin.
Seems like a great cohabitation there. Worked out.
Well, I got along fine with the animals.
So some of your experiences were in guiding some of the dudes, you called them, the visitors.
Well, I was really surprised. The ranch owner, Frank Gailey, told me one day that to be ready the next day early because I was going to lead a couple of dudes up a mountain trail that I'd never been on and didn't even know where it was. If Frank Gailey said to do something, you're going to do it. You don't ask too many questions.
You just do it.
And anyhow, I took him up there, and we had all kinds of adventures. But the biggest one was when the male of the couple dropped the reins of his horse, and the horse got loose and was heading back down the mountain. And I had to make a dash across the rocks and grab the bridle to hang on to the horse's mane for dear life, but I stopped him. The dudes thought I was the most impressive cowboy in the world, and I was just shaking my head because I had visions of having to walk down the mountain with the dude sitting on my horse.
Right. And then explain it.
But that pair of people were just wonderful. They thought I was a good kid, and they took a picture of me, and that picture is on the front cover of the book. And because they gave it to me, they gave me a little Kodak color slide.
It's a great photograph. I'm looking at that cover of the book right now, and you're setting your horse. Is that Shane, the one you're on there?
No, that was before Shane. This was one of the Shane was a little pinto, and he was just fine for walking in the woods, but he wasn't a mountain climber.
I see.
And I had about 30 or 40 horses to take what I wanted every day. This one was one that I liked, but that's a small room, but believe me, for ranch work.
So you did have the authentic cowboy experience.
Well, I think for a kid from St. Louis, it was as close to authentic as I could get away with.
It sounded like it. I can't imagine any other thing a cowboy would be doing. That was really true. The White Grass Ranch was just outside of Yellowstone, or was it in Yellowstone?
Oh no, it's just about 25, maybe 20 miles north of Jackson.
Okay.
It's at the foot of Buck Mountain, and Buck Mountain is the southernmost mountain in the Teton Range. So you go out of Jackson to Moose, and from Moose you go on a little road and you go sort of up the mountain, over a moraine, and along the Snake River. And in about 5 miles, you're on the White Grass.
Well, why don't you take this opportunity here right now to read for us a little bit from your experiences on the White Grass?
Well, this is going to be kind of hard to do, and the reason is that I get terribly emotional about this trip, about that experience. But I'll try my best if you'll be patient with me.
You bet.
This is in a part of the book where I talk about my relationship with animals that I encountered in my work, and it's part 4 on page 95.
Okay.
And I'll try my best to read it carefully.
Great.
It does rain in paradise every once in a while. It wasn't offered, but in midsummer, that a slow, steady rain would fall all morning. But in August in Jackson Hole, it was really early fall. My cows needed milking twice a day, spring, summer, or fall, and when it rained, they usually headed for the woods. There's something about a steady rain in the tall pines that makes all animals very mellow. This happened on one of those days. The barn had a collection of ponchos available, and when it rained or looked like rain, I would put one on before saddling up my horse. If it was raining, I always put my harmonica in my pocket when dressing, so I would have something to do if finding my cows took longer than expected. This was a very rainy day, and I couldn't find my cows, so I headed deeper into the woods than usual. Horses don't get to run through woods. The best they can do is slow, steady walk, and the horse is stepping over a lot of downed trees, which were really tall pines, very carefully. In the rain, I like to take feet out of the stirrups, put my legs up sort of over the saddle horn to let the poncho act like a tent and keep the water off my legs and boots and let the horse pick his way through the trees. So on Shane, in deep woods, playing my harmonica very softly, my head down to keep the rain from running down my chest, I looked up to find that Shane and I were in the middle of a herd of elk. Shane and I just stopped and stood still. The elk continued grazing. Once in a while, the bull elk would pick up his magnificent head and give me a confused look. He must have thought I was a funny-looking cow. I was very glad not to be wearing horns. After about 20 seconds of savoring the idea that Shane and I had been accepted into an elk herd, we resumed our slow walk in the rain through the herd and continued our search for my cows. At times, we were so close to an elk cow that I could have reached over and petted her. We stayed as far away as possible from the bull.
That's an amazing experience.
The funnier one was with bears, but I don't think we want to go that far.
Oh, yeah.
We had a lot of bears on the ranch. Oh, gosh. Bears are pretty looking, and they're really not too dangerous, but you don't want to fool around with them if they have little cubs.
And you have all kinds of stories in the book here. How do you think this experience informed the rest of your life?
Well, I have learned that I wasn't afraid to do anything.
Ah, good.
And I don't think that's something you know or understand. It's just something you get to feel.
Yes.
After you've done something that you didn't know how you or if you could really do. I think it gave me a tremendous sense of self-confidence. I got to interrelate with all kinds of wonderful people, from roughneck cowboys through the ranch guests, which were Philadelphia's elite families, and my own. That alone was a great experience.
And you went on then to own very successful businesses after going back to college and write a book.
I finished college with 2 degrees, one in accounting, and that's business or commerce and finance, and a minor in philosophy. And I did manage to finish about 6 years of German. And then when I was drafted after college, the U.S. Army, in its infinite wisdom, sent me to occupy downtown Tokyo. After the Army, I came back and tried to figure out what to do with my life. Pete Marwick offered me a job. Pete Marwick and Mitchell, rather famous at that time accounting firm. And my mother convinced me that my father really needed me to work in his company, which is a little commercial packaging company. And I decided to take lesser salary and do that. And it turned out wonderfully well. I managed within about 2 years, I had gone from company bookkeeper to business owner. It was from then on, it got better and better and better. And I ended up, I think the top level I got was about 300 employees and about 250,000 feet of manufacturing space.
So your summer in Whitegrass, it was very important to you. But then after you spent time there, Whitegrass fell on bad times.
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. And this is the part of the story that I wish I knew better.
Okay.
My relationship was with the owner and founder, Frank Gailey, and his first wife, Ingeborg Gailey, Inga for short.
Mm-hmm.
A long time perhaps, after I left the ranch, and I didn't stay in touch at all. They got divorced, and Frank married a new woman. I didn't really have any contact until, I guess sort of somewhere in my early 60s. I just had thoughts about wanting to see Frank and to see the ranch again and to take the wife at that time out to stay on the ranch. And I made a plan to do that. I called up the Gaileys and introduced myself to the new wife and spent the weekend on the ranch. I took a bottle of Hennessy's brandy along with me because I knew that was Frank's favorite drink. And he and I spent 2 or 3 nights drinking the brandy and telling stories. I left. And as I was paying the bill in the kitchen to Frank's second wife, she happened to ask me if I knew of anybody who would qualify as kitty wrangler. That's a little person who takes care of the kids while their mom and dads are off camping or mountain climbing or fly fishing or something. And the only one I could think of was my daughter, who at that time had been a rather accomplished horse lady, and was going to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art in Philadelphia. Now, that's a story in itself, how she got on the ranch, she got the job, but she did. So those things just kind of kept happening.
And so she spent a summer being a cowgirl there.
Being a cowgirl, and she said it was one of the greatest experiences she'd ever had in her life.
Isn't that great that you were able to share that?
Now, that's the good part of the story.
Okay.
I left the ranch with the wife named Nancy at that time, and we were driving back to Albuquerque, where I was living in the valley outside of Albuquerque in a place called the Valley, where all the horse ranches were, and I had a little ranch with horses on it, and grew my own alfalfa, and had about a 4,000-foot square adobe house, and it was a nice property, and very secluded and very private, and wonderful place for horses. And I raised peacocks and chickens and dogs and cats and pigeons, like fulfilling all my childhood fantasies. Anyhow, Nancy and I were on our way back from our weekend on the ranch, and I got a call on my car cell phone. At that time, cell phones in cars were as big as a concrete block.
Right, I remember.
And it was my daughter telling me that Frank Gailey had died.
Oh.
3 days after I left the ranch. Frank had sold the ranch sometime after I left there to the U.S. Park Service, National Park Service. Okay. Because it was property within the bounds of what was going to become Grand Teton National Park. It was right next to the Rockefellers' ranch. Of course, you know, the Rockefeller money provided most of the money to buy and acquire the property in Jackson Hole that became the Grand Teton National Park. But anyhow, the Rockefeller Ranch didn't become part of the park. It's still privately owned. That's just an aside.
Okay.
The Whitegrass was right next door to it. That was our neighbor, the Rockefellers. For the history of the Rockefeller Ranch, that's where all the presidents go for vacations in the West.
Right.
And anyhow, when Frank died, it wasn't certain what was going to happen to the Whitegrass because he had a life use contract. And when he died, the property reverts to the National Park Service ownership. Well, they let the Whitegrass run that season because they had all our bookings and accounts and people set up, and that's when my daughter worked as the kitty wrangler.
Okay.
In the last year the Whitegrass Ranch operated.
Mm.
When the ranch ceased operation that fall, the Park Service came in and tore down all the buildings, burned down some, and left it to stand there and rot.
Oh, dear.
Now, the rest of the story gets really interesting, but let's let your readers get a book and find out what happened.
Let's do, because it's fascinating what happened. And I would like to mention to our listeners that the book is very rich, not only in your memoir, but also in some of your own opinions and commentary. And I think that that'll be really exciting for them to read through that also.
They can get a taste of it if they want to by visiting my author's website. You have to do the HTTP thing, with the 2 slashes, www.LouisJChristen, all lowercase, all continuous, LouisJChristen.com. And that'll get you there.
And it's a very nice website with lots of pictures.
Lots of pictures of the ranch, the way it looked when I was there, and the way it looks now.
Yes.
What they've done to it, but we'll say that for your readers to find out.
Right. What they've done to it.
As a cowboy would say, it ain't probably good news.
That's right. The photos are there. Some of your commentary is there, and they can also find your book there.
Yeah, Summer on the Whitegrass is available on Amazon in hard and soft cover, ebook, and Kindle.
Great.
But it's also available for me, signed, which I'm glad to do, and mailed out right away.
Great. And they can do that through the website.
They can contact me through my website. Yes.
Perfect.
Well, suffice it to say, I had a wonderful time writing it.
I bet you did. And are you writing something now?
Well, yes is the answer, but I have 3 books in manuscript form,
Oh,
that I've
great.
written since summer, since I wrote Summer and had it published.
Okay.
And I've been struggling to try to figure out which way to go as a writer, but the title of the book that I've just committed to and have started on is, this is going to be a great departure for you now and your readers, How We Got from In God We Trust to In Lust, Avarice, and Greed We Believe.
Oh, well, that's quite the title.
Well, that title is, I think you'll find it, you might have found it in Summer, but it refers to the political situation that I think the U.S. has gotten into. Well, I have one more thing to tell your listeners that I consider my best claim to fame.
Yes, please.
I flew my own airplanes
Oh, that's right.
for over 40 years. Most of my flying was done at about 18,000 feet on oxygen.
Wow.
And never, here's my claim to fame, and never dented aluminum.
There you go.
You have to be a pilot to think about that. My business was so successful that it allowed me to start flying, and I did that until I retired enough to have a ranch and put my own horses back on again.
So you went from falling off horses to flying your own airplane.
Yeah, I went from falling off horses. Thank God I never fell off an airplane.
Right.
I wish you well and all your readers, and I hope that they can find some excitement and fun in my story.
I'm
and
sure.
I'd love to hear from them if they ever get a copy. They're welcome to contact me through my website, and I'll answer everything I get.
Great.
But I'm having a wonderful time as a writer now.
Oh, you should be. You do really well. And thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you. Thank you for wanting to talk to me. Bless your heart.
You too. And that was Lou Christen, author of Summer on the White Grass. This is Tracy Hails Fast, right on Four Corners on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico.